Hey, I'm Alex Adair. I'm here in my studio today to go through my track Casual, how I made it, how it started out, kind of how I make my music, a little bit about myself. So yeah, let's get going. This is my track Casual. It's a slightly bounced down version because of common logic overload problems that I'm sure that we all encounter. So just for this, I've kind of bounced down little audio bits that I'll go into later on. But yeah, the track actually started just with a cappella that I got from some producers called Future Cut. They just invited me into their studio one day, played me a ton of songs, and this was one of the tracks, and yeah, it just really leapt out to me. Took it, didn't work on it for a while actually, maybe about like 7 months-ish before I actually got around to doing this version. I think I tried other bits and bobs. I think I actually did like a flumy kind of version at one point, I think. But yeah, it took me several months to get around to doing this. And I actually, it kind of came to me just before a gig I had in Indonesia, in Jakarta. And came to me before I flew there, and I just had these kind of ideas from listening to like Muramasa and like Snake Hips with that kind of swingy kick and snare drum beats. And I actually did pretty much all the perk, all the kind of like piano chords, and I think even the actual vocal cut in the drop, which is pretty much like the main aspect of the whole song, all on that plane journey. Like the whole kind of foundation of it was done on a plane, which is crazy because I always write everything on keyboard. Like I do everything from like a playing piano kind of aspect, but this is like pretty much the only track I've ever done from just slowly jotting in over hours and hours and hours, little bits of like MIDI. But there you go. What else are you going to do on a 16-hour flight? So yeah, I'll just, as I just mentioned, I think the vocal cut, aside from the actual vocals themselves, are the kind of biggest hooks in the track. So I thought I'll just go through how they came together and what I did to do that. I'll play, well, hopefully I'll just play the actual track.
But what the hell, I thought we said.
So that like top vocal cut bit there, that bit there, that's actually just taken from the original a cappella. I'll solo it out. Overload, there we go. Much more of that to come. I actually just worked out what bits I originally used for it. So I'll go through what they sound like. Actually, I think if I drag this out, it's pretty much taken from this. That bit of the a cappella. And then pitched it up, pitched the first bit, the little U bit up, by an octave, I think. I always use Sound Shifter to do pitching. Actually, I don't always use Sound Shifter to do pitching vocals, but I think it's just the cleanest one to do. I think I use auto-tune a lot to pitch stuff when I want it to sound kind of messy and like very weird sounding just from the pitch itself. Sometimes Melodyne it if I want it super, 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 super clean, pitching it up, but Sound Shifter is, yeah, I use it on pretty much the majority of my vocals when pitching up. So that little U bit I pitched up by an octave, and then the rest of it was pitched up by an octave and then an extra 5 semitones on top. So it gives quite a nice little like progression to it. So that's what it sounds like just with the pitch. Obviously sounds horrendous. So then I've added some camel. Are these the exact same? Oh, they're slightly different. I'll go through this one. So the first thing I did was added like a really, really, really tight reverb. And this is something I learned from, I think, what was the track? I can't remember what track he was talking about, but I think like hearing Diplo talk about it once, talking about like using just like a really, really, really small reverb and then not having all the dry and having quite a lot of wet on it. It gives it a really, I don't know, like just a different tone, like a different tonality to the track. So I'll give you a little example. So you can even hear it then. It's just like it still adds like wetness to it, but it kind of changes like the size of it a little bit. I haven't done it too extreme because it's quite a high sound. And then made it more subtle with a longer reverb, 2-second reverb there. We'll just listen to this second bit. I'll get rid of that bit. So originally it's sounding a lot better than just that. A lot more palatable. Sample delay, I had it down the middle and it just wasn't, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to hear it everywhere, especially when listening in headphones. So when I want that, I use sample delay. A lot of people use spreader. I just prefer the sound of sample delay, so it just hits both speakers. So, you know, little delay, but super quick that you don't hear, but it just sounds like it's spread wide. Camel Crusher, I don't actually use Camel Crusher that much, but it's quite a good distortion to, well, actually the filter's actually really good on the distortion. I think I used the filter on this first bit because it was piercing through quite a lot. Yeah, I did use the filter, yeah, because it's quite a high sound. So without it, it's got that really like tinny kind of high end to it. I could have EQ'd it out, but I just like the sound of the filter on this, especially when you're kind of distorting it a lot. Because the distortion makes it nice, crisp coming through. That's a little bit too high, so use the filter on that. And then yeah, same kind of settings for this second bit, so it just sounds coherent. Sounding good to me, sounds like a hook. And then I think, yeah, both of them, I think actually throughout the project I used Nicky Moreau's Kickstart. I'm sure I actually must have used sidechain compression somewhere because it's not a straight kick. Not sure. But yeah, I generally, if it's a 4 on the floor, I'll generally choose that Kickstart for sidechaining. I think it's just good, does the job. And you don't have to worry about changing your kick later on, things like that. So what to go into next? The vocals were actually, I think a lot of the parts are already done by Future Cuts. They're already like clean, recorded, tuned. Thank God. And I think all I added, I haven't got it in this project, I don't think, so that's just bounced out, was CLA vocals, which is just, you know, it absolutely does the job. Just makes things sound incredible. I turn up the treble quite a lot. I think it sounds really, really like high.
It's cool 'cause we both agreed we were easy, kinda weak.
Yeah, I think that's just it, and quite a strong delay on it as well. And actually throughout, I haven't really done this in any other track, but I had the like an octave, is it an octave above? Yeah, an octave above, pretty much. Well, not all the way through. I've taken it out in the verses, but it's really prominent throughout a lot of the track. And I think it's just because I wanted the vocal to just, number one, have that like really high end to it as well, but just have like a weird tone to it as well. Like the vocal does sound quite weird. It's like you hear that really just sitting on the high end. So that's where that You Say You Love Me, that's where the drop it came from. So yeah, that's how I got the that kind of high vocal riff. And then I think I originally had it going throughout, and it just sounded a bit, especially when you hear it like 3 times in the track, and you hear it a bit in the intro as well. It sounds a bit repetitive, so I just bounced that out and had the octave below as well, so it kind of gives like a cool and repeat effect, which is cool. Like, I love hearing things like that in tracks. I think that literally is. I think I've just bounced out the whole high track, shifted it, down again using sound shifter. Well, I've shifted it down. Bounced out and shifted it down 12, and then what's this Camel Crusher doing? Just compressing it, just squashing it again. And I mean, when you listen to it separately, it sounds really kind of like messed up and kind of like dirty sounding, but I think it sounds great when it's all together in the track. That's how I approach sounds anyway, honestly. If you went into all my tracks and looked at the sounds separately, you'd be like, how have you left that sitting in the track? But I think it just matters what it sounds like when it's all together. No one's going to hear things separately, are they? Well, apart from now. And obviously got to have the hook coming in. I mean, it is a pop song. Got to hear the hook in the drop. Just little vocal effects like that. Again, I think that's actually pretty much the same channel as the pitch that vocal in the drop for this little high vocal effects here. So I started off sounding like this. So a little love me. So when I go through vocals, I never look for what the word is. Sometimes I look for the word because like O's and A's are really good to pitch. The things that sound like that, but I just look for the melody in it. I don't look for anything else, because you can get rid of, like, quite clearly you can hear when everything's off. You can quite clearly hear that says "love me," but when you're adding all this sound shift, this distortion, that like tight reverb, as I said, that's the thing that really makes it just completely gets rid of any dictation in it at all. Just kind of sounds like doesn't sound like it's a word at all. So yeah, I'm always looking for just the actual melody in vocals when I'm looking what to cut up and what to use. And I think below is just the exact same thing again, but pitched down. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for all the vocal effects. The ending, I've got little bits and bobs. I think that's like, I don't know what that's saying actually. So that's obviously bounced vocal with like a octave below, I think, from the original. Again, not listening to the words at all, it's saying like body not my heart, but I kind of like the da 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 da, like running it. Again here, I haven't done much this one, it's just a straight pitch down. When I'm pitching stuff down, I tend to do less effects with it, because I just think when you're pitching stuff up and it goes super high, you want to get rid of so much of that like piercing, like hurts your ears around that like 10K, that kind of range in the frequencies. So when I'm pitching stuff down, I keep it quite dry normally actually. So here, just 2-second reverb again, heavy side chain, and then that pitched up, I have the exact same thing. So yeah, there's lots of little vocal effects in this one. This is the first track that I really kind of looked as that as like the really main aspect of it, and you heard it in like a ton of my remixes I've done since Casual. But I really tried to go kind of like vocal cut heavy at any given opportunity. Also have it coming in the intro, and with intros, I always like to like tease just a little bit of the chorus for 2 reasons. Number one, like you've got to get someone's attention straight away, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds tops. If you don't like a song within that time frame, you're not going to listen to the rest of it. Like, I'm the same with that as well. If I put something on Spotify, if I don't like it straight away, you know, I'm probably going to start skipping through and things like that, you know, small attention span. But yeah, I start with like that little bit of the vocal, the high bit. So then next time it actually comes in the chorus, because I think originally it sounded not out of place, but like kind of like, oh, whoa, like your ears aren't used to that. So I always try and have like a little indication of what's going to happen in the drop actually in the intro as well. And then again in this track, first time I've done this, I've done it quite a few times since, yeah, I think mainly remixes I've done it in. Yeah, my Naked Call Me remix actually is another one I've done pretty much the exact same thing. It's just like a bit of the drop, but I filter it up, which I think just gives like a really nice like starting effect. So again, everything, like you're hearing the beat straight away, but it's not too in your face. Because, you know, the verse is like 4 on the floor. So you want to hear that change in drum beat before it actually comes in this like free section here. So like you've heard all the elements now. You know, you've heard all the synths that are coming in the drop, you've heard the drum beat. I mean, obviously there's more that comes in the drop than at the beginning. You know, it doesn't have those synths, actually, yeah, it doesn't have the synths actually, but it's got the piano chords, it's got the rhythm of it, the timing of it, so I always try and do that just so it gives like when next time your mind hears it as a listener, like it sounds familiar. I think that's it's actually a key thing to hit. It's always got to be like new, and innovative, but at the same time, like having a sense of familiarity about it is a key thing as well. So I actually try and incorporate that into the structure of my tracks as well. So like elements you'll hear just before, but you might not know about it. So yeah, I think that's the first time I kind of did that field effect as well in a track. I think it worked really well. So now I'll go into the synths. I've just bounced out the vocals and drums and stuff. That's why the project looks substantially smaller. Just to go through this. So the kind of main, like in the drop, the main kind of stabs are comprised, like the high end, well, everything apart from the bass is comprised of these sounds here. Some basses. Classic chords. So you can hear there's strings. For strings, I vary quite a lot actually. In this one, I think I've just used Actual Contact session. Yeah, it's just in the factory library. I think those solo strings are from. Let's have a look. Yeah, just the solo strings from there, which are good. I think I use the pizzicato ones quite a lot as well. Staccato ones are cool. Surprised I remembered the chords then. Yeah, just like simple strings, and it just kind of adds like a nice, authentic, not really authentic because they don't sound really natural strings, but if you just have plucks, number one, I've left like the kind of high end off purposely, but they just add a bit more of a natural kind of feel to it. Much more poppy feel as well. So then the kind of another main sound you hear there is this like saw, and then you again contact. I think this was in the, can't remember where actually. Vintage, yes, vintage analog machines, and the straight pad I started out with, and you can hear it's just, I haven't changed a ton of stuff with it. I mean, it's just a saw. It's just a saw. Do you know what I mean? It's just saw waves. But I think I've changed bits and bobs with like the ADSR, because it doesn't come in straight. It's sort of like boom, boom. It kind of like rides into it a little bit. so it's not really harsh. I think I was doing that with my sounds because I've got it with the pluck as well. Yeah, like quite a lot. The cut-off attacking on that one. I was doing that because I think I just liked the way it sitted with the kick. So I suppose having that attack on all the synths is just kind of similar to, you know, a little bit of like sidechain compression with the kick drum. But I really want the kick to just really pierce through. So I didn't want it really stabby. I kind of was going for more like a just kind of chilled out kind of vibe to it. But yeah, don't think I've really added much to the. I think I had something going on there which is no longer available. It's an old project. But yeah, pretty much just a little bit of reverb. Oh, no reverb at all. Unless I've got that automated somewhere. No. But yeah, a little bit of EQ, getting rid of the low end, just to keep things neat. So, so my bass just takes up that frequency. Super important, just doing little things like that. Just making sure every sound, I know I said earlier, I don't really care what sounds sound like by themselves, but when it comes to the kind of like components that make up all the mid-range and mainly kind of chords in tracks, always try and make sure I'm just EQing them as best I can, you know, without being lazy. Getting rid of the low end, boosting, what's that, around 7, 8K, 7.5. Just add a bit more top end onto it. This is my lovely, I think I've even saved it as well, yeah, casual square stab. I save things when I'm like, yeah, like I've worked on a sound for a while. Like I think it started off as a preset. Yeah, I think it started off as a preset, which I start off a lot of sounds with presets. There's no harm in that as long as you're actually going in and changing them, because that's what presets are there for. Presets aren't the finished article. It's just like a starting point. And the great things with plugins like Sylenth and Serum, which I absolutely love as well, I haven't used Serum in this project, is that you can see everything that's going on. So if you load a preset, you know, you could actually see what they've done to kind of build that sound. So that's why I love using Sylenth, because it's just so visually, I can understand everything straight away. Whereas like, you know, things like Massive, like I do use Massive, but I think I haven't taken the time to sit down and properly delve into it. So it doesn't just connect to me like that. And I think that's important when I'm trying to mess around and kind of create sounds. And like when I'm looking at sonics and sound design, it just needs to be, all I want to think about is what's sounding cool when I hear something like, oh, I want it to sound like this, rather than trying to root things here, there and everywhere. So I think with this one, again, the main thing is just that attack on the cutoff. Oh, got a bit stuck. You know, playing with things like that. So that's just literally opening that up and down again according to the ADSR envelope. Also attack on the main actual sound as well, on the actual saw there and square there. So yeah, again, quite simple, just a little bit of distortion on it, compressed a little bit as well. I don't tend to use the effects in Sylenth that much. I use chorus quite a lot. Chorus is cool in the Sylenth. I think it's quite a good one. Like, I mean, it's not particularly good, but you can hear everything it does. Sometimes some choruses you don't hear everything that's going on. But again, simple kind of sound. I didn't want anything too distorted or too messy, so so didn't heavily affect everything. Compression on this one, I knew I had some sidechain compression somewhere. So that will be, I've actually bounced out the kicks now, just with a massive drum channel, just for this, but that will be the a bus on the, I think I would have had 2 kicks, like a lower kick and a higher kick. I think on the higher kick I would have sent a bus to that, brought that up, brought down the auxiliary channel, and sidechain that to this. It's only doing it a tiny bit, but it just adds to the kind of swing of the track. So every time the kick's coming in, it's ducking this out a tiny bit, this synth. And yeah, I do use sidechain compression a lot, but when it's just 4 on the floors, just for simplicity, I use kickstart the majority of the time. Just because, yeah, just workflow, easier to do. And as I said, I was doing most of this on a plane, so a lot easier to load kickstart than start going into the science of sidechain compression. That's all we've got time for today. But if you want to see the rest of my piece with Computer Music Magazine, you need to go buy their magazine.